I am Shabana Basheer, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics and Statistics, MBS College, Marampally.
Today, my topic of discussion include types of data, collection of data, classification of data, and tabulation of data. There are two additional procedures in statistical data analysis: diagrammatic and graphical representations, the application of different statistical tools like measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, skewness, kurtosis, correlation, regression, etc. Diagrammatic and graphical representations, we can say a lot of graphical representations are there, like histogram, frequency, polygon, frequency curve, etc. Now we'll discuss about types of data. There are mainly two types of data: primary data and secondary data. Primary data are those collected by the investigator himself for the first time for a specific purpose, and thus they are original in character. It is the data freshly collected for the specific purpose. So there are mainly four methods for the collection of primary data: direct personal investigation, indirect oral investigation, by schedules and questionnaires, and through local correspondence. In direct personal investigation, investigator directly goes to the individuals and collect data from them directly. In indirect oral investigation, instead of collecting data from the individuals, investigator collect data from a third person who is in contact with this population. And by schedules and questionnaires, as we all know, a set of questions is called a questionnaire. If the questionnaire is filled by the investigator, it is called schedule, and if it is filled by the individual itself, it is called a questionnaire. Then the last method of data collection is through local correspondence. In this method of data collection, we can see that in each area there will be a correspondent who will collect the data and hand over the data to the investigator. Newspaper agencies usually adopt this technique of data collection. All these methods have its own merits and demerits. The next type of data is secondary data. Secondary data means it is not a fresh data. It's a data which somebody had already collected for some other purpose, and we adopt the data from them for our study. There are merits and demerits associated with secondary data also. Less expensive and it is less time consuming. Secondary data may be collected from published or unpublished sources. Published source means official publications of central, state, local governments, economist reports, research scholars reports are all comes under published source. Unpublished source include the materials found with the scholars, writers, etc. Then the next step is collection of data. Before discussing about a collection of data, we must be aware about population and sample. Population means the set or totality of all objects under our study is called a population. And it is very difficult for us to investigate the entire population all the times. So we are collecting a representative part from the population, and by studying only that representative part, we are making conclusions about the population. That representative part is called sample, and this method of data collection is called sampling. The selection of sample should be very careful. Okay, selection of sample should be done in a very careful manner, otherwise the results will be misleading. Census is a method of, first method of data collection is census method. Census is a method of collecting data in which information are collected from each and every individual of the population. For example, Government of India conduct a census survey in every 10 years. And there are advantages. Data are obtained from each and every unit. Results obtained are likely to be more accurate and reliable. Then in the case of prior event, census method is appropriate method, but disadvantage is also effort, money and time required for carrying out complete enumeration or census is generally very high. Sometimes census method is very destructive. Sampling method, as I have already told, sampling is the process of collection of data from a sample taken from that population. And less time and effort needed, less cost, administrative convenience, and it is possible to get more detailed, reliable and accurate information, as we have to investigate only a representative part, not the whole data. Then it is sufficient if the required measurements are taken from a few students selected at random in sampling method. Then demerits of sampling. Sample survey must be carefully planned and executed, otherwise results obtained may be inaccurate and misleading. Sampling requires the service of experts. Sometimes it is very difficult to select a sample from the population. If information required from each and every unit, sampling technique cannot be used. Now, assumptions in sampling. There are mainly 3 assumptions in sampling. The items in the population must have overall uniformity. Samples selected represent the universe generally. Sample results are true in general. Then we have already discussed about the differences between census and sample survey. We know that in census we have to collect information from each and every individual, where sample data is required from only a representative part of the population. Time, effort and money involved in census survey is very high, and all these are minimized in sampling techniques. Then a detailed study of all items is possible in sampling, where a very detailed study is not possible in census, as we have to investigate a large population. So these are the differences between census and sampling. Next, classification of data. Now, after the collection of data, we have to classify the data according to similarities. Otherwise, we will not be able to apply any statistical tools to that data. Then objects of classification: to simplify complexity, to bring out points of similarity, to facilitate comparison, to bring out the relationship, to prepare basis for tabulation. Tabulation is the next step to classification. So the classification is the base for doing tabulation. There are mainly 4 types of classification: qualitative classification, quantitative classification, geographical classification and chronological classification. Qualitative classification means classification of data according to quality. According to an attribute is called qualitative classification. We can consider literacy and employment as attributes. Classification according to variables: if we are classifying data according to variables or quantitative information, such type of classification is called quantitative classification. For example, height, weight classification according to height, weight, mark, etc. are examples of quantitative classification. Next, geographical classification. Geographical classification means if you are classifying the data area wise, such type of classification is known as geographical classification. For example, if population of India shown state wise, can be considered as a type of geographical classification. Last type of classification is chronological classification, and the data are collected for a number of periods and are arranged chronologically. We have chronological classification. For example, if population of India represented year wise, can be considered as a type of chronological classification. Next, moving on to tabulation. Tabulation is the Next step of classification. Classification is the base for tabulation. Objectives of tabulation: to simplify complex data, to facilitate comparison, to economize space, to facilitate statistical analysis, to save time, to remember data, etc. A lot of objectives are there for tabulation. Now we'll discuss about different parts of a table. In tabulation, we represent the data. It is an orderly arrangement of data in rows and columns. It's a method of systematic presentation. Now, different parts of a table. First part, table number. Each table should be numbered. We can see that in a statistical analysis study, there may be a lot of tables. So each table should be numbered, otherwise we can't identify which table is. Then title of the table. Every table should be given a specific title. Then caption. Caption means column heads. Stub or row headings. Body or the field is the most vital part of the table. It is the content of the table. Then head note. Head note means a brief explanatory statement applying to major part of the materials in the table. It may be placed in brackets immediately following the title. For example, unit. If height values are represented in a column, then it is not necessary to write centimeter in each row. It is required to write the unit in the bracket just to the right side of column head. Next part is footnote. Footnotes are placed directly below the body of the table whenever it is required. Source of the data. Source from where the data contained in the table has been obtained should be mentioned. Moving on to different types of tables, there are mainly 4 types of tables: general purpose tables, special purpose tables, simple table, and complex table. General purpose tables represent detailed statistical information. For example, tables given in census report is a general purpose table. Special purpose table. The special purpose tables are used to indicate the relationship which is of special significance. In simple table, there will be only one characteristic under consideration, and if we are considering more than one characteristics, it is called complex table. Then the things which we must remember while the construction of a table. Table should be compact, brief, and neat. Table should not be overloaded with details. Items should be arranged in alphabetic chronological order. Line should be comparatively thin. A proper title, heading should be given. Zero quantity should be shown by 0. Abbreviations should be avoided as far as possible. Do not use ditto marks. Facts should be so arranged in a table so as to make the comparison between them easy. Now there are the differences between classification and tabulation. We have already told. Classification is the arrangement of data according to similarities. Then tabulation involving the presentation of data in an orderly manner. Then the process of grouping the given data into homogeneous classes considered as classification. And the presentation of these facts in numerical form, which we can readily understand, is called tabulation. Classification is a statistical analysis, while tabulation is a process of presenting data in a suitable structure. These are the main differences between classification and tabulation. This is all for today. Thank you. The next steps will be involved in another class.